Hey, and welcome to Pattern Shift. I'm Saskia, a creative life and business coach for fiber-loving makers, teachers, designers, shop owners, and all-around creatives. I help you wayfind your next step, organize your business to fit your life, and launch ideas with joyful action. Together, we'll untangle the tricky bits like branding, marketing, and sales, and build something sustainable, soulful, and truly you. Hi, and welcome back to Pattern Shifts. Welcome to this podcast that I have been doing for a while now. And today I was actually recording earlier an episode about filtering ideas. And I don't know, today I feel a little bit fuzzy. And I thought this might not have been my best episode. And then I got to thinking, I have said goodbye to perfectionism, but also at this moment, I don't know if I can really decide whether or not I think that episode, that recording is good enough. So I decided to just have a chat with you instead. And for those of you who are new to this podcast or fairly new, I thought it would be nice to just have a chat and talk to you about, who I am and what I do and what this podcast is for and why, and just basically general chatting. But it's completely and utterly unprepared. So there's no way of knowing where this is going. Which is basically like having a chat with me at any normal time of day. I have just returned from a weekend in Frankfurt. I think 5 years ago, maybe even a little bit more, I was in this course for creative businesses. That's just how the world turns, isn't it? I am now doing what this person was offering at the time as a group course situation. What I do now is more of a one-on-one type coaching thing, while I also did make a course and I'm still using the course within my coaching in multiple ways. But it's very interesting that 5 years ago, I was in this course for people that wanted to start a creative business. I have had my business for way longer than that, but I just love learning and there's always something new to learn. And I was listening to this podcast and ended up taking the course and meeting some wonderful people there. We worked in small groups and there were 5 people in my group and we ended up staying in touch. And usually we get together once a year. And this year we went to Frankfurt for the second time, which is not specifically a go-to destination if you're not in the business world, I think. But because it is right in the middle of where most of us live, it's just the most democratic location for us to go to. This time I drove by car, and that was different because usually I take a train. I really take a lot of time figuring out how I can move from A to B in a way that feels like it's honoring my energy and the world. And so I've done a bunch of train travels to Germany and Switzerland, and it ended up taking me 9 to 10 hours, and I would be exhausted by the end of it, mostly because the connections wouldn't work or they would be delayed, and I would feel super stressed if I would be able to get to the next connection. And I was just not using the idea of being in a train and being able to quietly sit and read and knit and, I don't know, do some bullet journaling. But in actual life, that hardly ever worked out that way. So this time I thought I'll take the car and we drive. We have an electric family car and I took our family car and I really loved it because it was a long drive. I think from door to door, it ended up being, I think it also was about 9 hours. It's because I needed the charging time. So there's some of that. There was some traffic issues, but most of the time it went really smoothly and I was by myself and there was no other input than just taking care of driving safely. And that was a very nice experience, I have to say. Not in the least because I was listening to Rick Rubin's book. Let me find the title for you. The Creative Act, A Way of Being. Amazing book. Loved it. Loved it so much. I don't know from what year this book is. If it's old or new? Can I get the information for my... Oh, it's 2023. So it's fairly new. I loved it. I loved it so much. I finished the whole book halfway going back and I don't know. What can I say about it? I'm not the type who I don't like giving reviews of things because my experience is not your experience. And actually, that's also in the book. Art, creativity, craft. It talks about those different things and aspects and who is an artist, who's not an artist. I don't know. I want to use the word adore. I adored the book. There was so much recognition of myself, and how I experience creativity and making art, learning about art and crafts, and the overlap or the difference between. Amazing. So if you haven't read it, and if you're in any way, and you probably are, if you're listening to this podcast, interested in anything about creativity or art, go and find Rick Rubin's The Creative Act, A Way of Being. Amazing. So yeah, that's what I did in the car. I am very crafty and creative. And so what I did was I listened to the book and I used my lapel microphone that I sometimes use for recording video or recording a podcast while I'm not at home. And I actually recorded my notes on the book. Because lately I've been thinking a lot again about needing to be away from screen and needing to open up some space for my brain to relax, first of all, but also being able to create and be creative. I cannot do that while I keep my brain occupied all the time by either listening to podcasts. You should listen to this one, by the way, or watching videos or whatever. I need my brain to have space to breathe, to make connections. And you do that in the negative space in between creating. So the irony of this whole thing is that I've been listening to things and watching videos on the topic. But first, I needed to get some information in order for me to then put it in this machine that is my brain and body and turn it into some sort of fermented product that comes out that works for me. So I have thought a lot about this negative space and how I can create it. Sometimes it's quite easy. It's like taking the dog for a walk and not bringing the phone is so hard, isn't it? How did people used to do that? They would just get lost and they would just be abducted by aliens and no one would know. But I'm not going to let that happen. If I'm abducted by aliens, I'm going to send people a message as I'm zoomed up. So I need my phone. But not taking it out of my pocket, also very hard because I have a photographer's mind. If I see something beautiful, I want to capture it. And if I walk the dog, I tend to do that in a park, which is park/forest. And I always see something beautiful because nature is beautiful. And yeah, so I always need to take pictures, and I really train myself to take picture, put the phone away again. That's one thing that I try to do as I'm walking the dog. When I'm at home, it's much harder. I do have my bullet journal practice, so when I sit down to journal, I usually don't have my phone. But that's the great thing about bullet journaling, is also that it doesn't take much time. So yeah, I basically am done with that quite fast. I want to read more. The reading that I do now is done before I go to sleep. And I probably get to 3 pages or something, and then I'm like, oh, I gotta sleep. And so I read fiction before I sleep, because if I read nonfiction, my brain turns on a different paying attention level. It wants to remember the practical stuff, and it's not as much like that when I read fiction. So, but that's not the kind of reading that's not enough for me. And I've been listening to Cal Newport, and he was talking about 5 different ways to get your thinking brain going or something. I don't know exactly what it's called anymore. And one of the things he said was read at least 25 pages a day. And I connected that to the practice of a commonplace book, a notebook where you write things down, that like quotes or things that interest you. And I thought, well, I already have my bullet journal, which is that, but I don't have a bullet journal on me all the time. And that's not what the practice needs anyway. But when I study, I do want to take notes. So, for example, I'm learning about intuitive eating at the moment. I have lost 30 kilograms of weight by doing a mixture of training at the gym 3 times a week. I have a dietitian. I watch what goes in, but like not in a very restrictive way. It's more aimed towards building muscles, and muscles sounds like seafood. Muscles. What's the difference? How do you say that differently? Muscles and I don't know, but you know what I mean. And so there's a dietitian. I have a physiotherapist that's also my trainer, just to prevent any difficulties, because every time I have done sports and trained before because I was overweight, it would eventually turn into an issue with my body, and then I wouldn't move anymore. And that was like a circular thing. So I found someone, or a place where they do a mixture of physiotherapy and training. And I work with him, but I also train by myself. And we set goals. Most of the goals that we set are not measurable. They're more like intentions, which really connects to the way I live my life and my bullet journal practice. But what was I saying? Yeah. So and then also the combination with medication. And I know this is a difficult thing to talk about because there's so many opinions about that. For me, just shortly, because I could do a full episode on this, but this podcast is about creative life and work, and not so much about losing or gaining weight for that matter. But how I see it is that, for example, I have asthma and I have a medication that helps me breathe. I have a medication now that helps the disease I have, which is obesity, which is now in the Netherlands at least accepted as a is a disease a good word? I guess it's a chronic disease. That's how I've experienced it in my life. And there's now medicine that helps my body helps me with my interoception. which is tricky because I have ADHD, and people with ADHD often have less of an ability to feel whether they feel like signals from their body telling them something, like you have had enough, you're full, or you need to go to the toilet, or usually that works. But there's this different, like, there's like a veil over it. It's not as clear. And with this medication, it helps me to tell me when I have had enough, which makes a huge difference. Of course, in the beginning, it made me so nauseous that accounted for the loss of weight in the beginning, but I don't feel that nauseous anymore. So it's been hard work, and it's been amazing, and I have lost a lot of weight, and I don't remember why that came up, which is typical. And also, I don't take any ADHD medication because I have a heart arrhythmia issue. But this other medication also kind of helps with it's complicated. And anyway, let me find the reason why I started talking about the weight loss. Yeah, this is so annoying. Also, because I'm also going through perimenopause. So I don't know if it's the ADHD that makes me not remember what I was talking about, or the brain fog that comes with perimenopause, or, which also is the case, that becomes worse when you are in perimenopause. Your ADHD symptoms become exaggerated. Like, so I remember my husband saying, it feels like ever since you got diagnosed, it feels like you are more ADHD. And that is because of two things. I think going through the process of accepting and understanding why you are the way you are also comes with kind of like not a free pass, but I started to be more myself, because now I knew that I was not being a weirdo or, I don't know, strange. I have ADHD, so it makes sense that I do these things differently and I process things differently. And see, this is why a script, or not a script, but at least talking points are really helpful for me. Okay, so going back, sometimes I don't know why I don't know, and it's a struggle. But I always get there in the end. Usually I take notes, and I have tools to help me, like my bullet journal, but not if I don't have talking points in front of me while I try to do a podcast. I was talking about the book, about Rick Rubin, being in the car, being comfortable, more comfortable than in the train, being less bombarded with like impulses. So at the end of the trip, I felt much more calm and relaxed than I did when I traveled by train. I think there was another part in there, but I think I was talking about craft. Oh my gosh. Well, you're getting the real me. That is for certain. This is what I sound like if I don't have a script. So meeting these women every year is amazing, because throughout those 5 years, we have been on this discovery of ourselves and who we are. And it's so interesting because one of them has a podcast, and it's called Gifted Unleashed. She has a podcast about 2E people and gifted people. So 2E means twice exceptional. So that means you can be gifted and also have ADHD, or also be on the spectrum, being autistic, or any other learning difficulties or other things. And all of us have discovered things about ourselves and are still discovering things about ourselves. And it seems like, in Dutch, soort zoekt soort, like we kind of automatically gravitate towards each other in a way. So there's now some of us who know they have ADHD. We're basically all gifted in one way or another. If you want to know more about that, go ahead and listen to Nadia's podcast, because giftedness is not always what people think. And recently this week, something really weird happened. I found out that I have something that is called aphantasia, which means that I don't get a really clear image in my head when people describe things. So if you would ask me, picture a field with a horse in it and a sun going down, most people, I think, would see that quite clearly some people into very much detail. And then gradually it goes down into like nothing at all. People that it's a scale. So it's not a spectrum, but a scale. It goes from super, super detailed to like the hairs on the back of the horse to blackness and nothing. And I'm somewhere in the middle. So I can imagine things, but they're fleeting. I don't see details. I cannot hold on to them. So they're there and then they're gone. In my mind, I have more of a knowing, more of a feeling than a seeing. And this is something I found out 2 days ago. And I've been so astounded by it. I had no idea that that was a thing. I did know that I thought differently from most people, but I thought that was more about ADHD or something else. And also being very creative and an artist in many ways, I am now thinking I'm missing out. I'm missing out on this. People are watching a movie in their brain continuously, and that is so weird to me. And then there was this thing that was, because of course I went into a rabbit hole, and there was this thing connected to it, and people were talking about your inner dialogue, whether or not you have an inner dialogue. And then for a second I thought, I don't have an inner dialogue either. Turns out I do. It's different. So this is this is kind of becoming the topic of this podcast episode. So when I allow my brain space to think and to breathe and to kind of like, I'm having this, see, there we go. I'm having this image of a brain pulsating. I'm not literally having that image, but I'm saying it like that. So I guess I do have a bit of an image. It's such a weird thing now that I know this. I am so weirdly focused on it. Anyway, so giving your brain space to allow for thinking is something we need to do more if you're on your phone a lot. Because what happened is I'm dealing with this thing that is now information to me. I'm deciding, okay, I'm going to walk the dog for an hour in the park, in the forest. And I'm going to not have my phone. I'm going to wear my journal that is also a handbag. And I'm going to write down whenever I have a thought, if I have any. And what I noticed was that my inner dialogue is turned outwards as soon as someone's there. Like I will just speak. It's just the floodgates. It's just gates. It just comes out. And then I talk to the dog. So I basically narrate what I'm seeing out loud to the dog, unless there's someone that I don't know in the vicinity. And I do have some sort of social filter system. So I would stop then. But I also noticed that some thoughts are happening in my head, but I'm basically just telling myself what I'm seeing, but it's not continuously. It's just the things that kind of light up, like, oh my God, look at that pretty beetle, or just a random sentence, but I don't think in a narrative, if that makes sense. It doesn't make sense to me, so it probably won't make sense to you either. So I'm investigating this. I am being curious about it, trying not to panic. I'm not panicking. It is a weird thing though, because it makes me understand now, especially the aphantasia, why math was so hard for me, because I cannot see the numbers. If I try to see an equation or something in my head, it's just fleeting. It just goes. So I can't hold on to it, and then I panic and I try to do it again. I can't. So I just have to kind of know, and I don't. So it's a mixture of, let's say that the aphantasia has not helped me to understand math in a way that a lot of people probably would. I don't think I have dyscalculi. I'm not dyscalculic. I'm not a dyscal. I don't have that, but I apparently have a lot of trouble speaking, although I get a lot of practice. Yeah. So it's been interesting. Creativity, the way you process information, all kinds of information, and being neurodivergent, which is now clearly the case. It was always clearly the case for a lot of people that know me, and it has been for years for me. But it has helped me a lot to get an official diagnosis, just to, I don't know, believe it. Yeah. And then meeting with these friends who are also kind of puzzling themselves together, and having this space where you can be fully yourself, but it can still be tricky. Like this idea of masking, which is trying to be like everybody else is so that you fit in more, so that you're not weird, is something that can take a lot of energy, and it can add to becoming burned out, and different types of burned out as well. But with these people, I don't have to mask. I can be me, but I'm also trying to communicate my boundaries a lot more. And sometimes that is really tricky, because we were in the city, we were shopping. It was 26 degrees Celsius, which is hot. For me, it's hot. It was the first hot day of the year. I don't do well with heat, let alone it happening out of nowhere. I had some bags. I was uncomfortable. We were going into the train station, down into the subway, and one of my friends was talking to me, and I just could not process what she was saying. And in that moment, I could have kind of lied, what I feel like is lying, just going, uh-huh. But I didn't want to do that, because I wanted to know what she had to say. I just couldn't process it at that time. And so I asked her to hold the thoughts and tell me once we were sitting down in the train. But it was the second time that I did that, asked her to do that in a short time. And I can see how that seems like you're not interested. While in fact, I was the opposite of not interested. I wanted to hear what she had to say. So it's always a struggle in guarding your own boundaries, and at the same time also having empathy and understanding of the people around you, and doing this in a new language, in something that you weren't taught to do, or you weren't taught to do, while knowing how you kind of work and process things. So yeah, it's amazing to have people in your life that are understanding and open to the discussion around this, which of course we had afterwards, and just getting really deep into things rather than staying into the small talk is what I really, really enjoy in connecting with people. And there's a lot of overlap with that and how I work now, because I wouldn't want to work in a space where I couldn't be myself. And as a result of that, I work with people who are a lot like me, even if I don't put myself out there, like I'm a neurodivergent coach or something. I'm not focused on that right now. I'm focused on working with people that are creative and either have a creative business or want to start a creative business, and working with who they are as a person, what they need and their boundaries and their life as it is, to find ways of doing things not so much like you were always taught to do them, but what fits in your life right now, in terms of the amount of energy that you have, your interests, your curiosities, your intentions, your goals, things like that. So what I do, how I live as a person, and what I do for work are very, very close together. When you work with me, you get this version. I don't talk the whole time because as a coach, I'll let you do most of the talking, but I will be unfiltered, and I will be honest, and I will be silly, and we'll have a lot of fun, most likely. But there will also be space to let your emotions come when they're not so joyous. There's also space for that, although it's not a therapy. Coaching is not therapy, but it doesn't mean that there's not space for all kinds of feelings and emotions. And so as I am going through life, learning more about myself, I'm also coaching myself in, okay, my brain is always like occupied. I need more space because I feel like I need to think. And then I realize, opening up that space, that wait, I don't actually think. Like I don't think. I don't think. Do I? What happens is I don't have a narration of question response in my head. I think through the process of being, experiencing, listening, journaling, and it feels like it's kind of more of an osmosis kind of a situation where things just come to me, solutions come to me, but that sounds so woo-woo. That's not purely the case. I think the bullet journal practice does a lot of the heavy lifting there. And if I have a certain question, like right now, I'm curious about having more space in my brain. I'm having less occupied time or less occupied space, and how to get there. It's a research process, what then turns into an experiment, and then I journal about it. So the thinking process is not a narration in my mind. It's more of a step-by-step process that ends up where I kind of know what the thing is. And perhaps this is what all of you do. I'm not sure anymore. I know there's not a normal, and I know there's as many different ways of processing information than there are different people. But I also know that ADHD and giftedness and aphantasia and all these things are real. They sometimes feel like disabilities, and they sometimes feel, this is my personal feeling, and they sometimes feel like I'm the luckiest person alive to be able to experience all of this joy and inspiration and creativity. And I'm not going to trade this. I loved trading my big body for a smaller body, and now having very wobbly underarms and other wobbly parts that were a little bit filled out before. I don't mind that trade because I feel there's a new kind of freedom, not a new kind of, there's actually freedom that comes with that. I can do things now that I couldn't do before. As a woman in my midlife, in my 50s, I need to build muscle power to stay healthy. Before, I didn't, I was healthy and I was overweight, and it was both true. But now that my body's changing with the hormones and everything, I need to make different decisions. And that's why I decided to take this next step with my weight loss journey. Oh, now I think I remember what I was talking about. Yes, I do. I was talking about learning about intuitive eating because I need something that is going to connect to a new way of looking at food. I'm learning how to trust my body and listen to my body for what it needs in the most basic way possible. Like, are you hungry? Are you thirsty? That kind of thing. Intuitive eating is more deep into your introspection, and I've just started to learn about it. But I'm also worried that with an ADHD brain and not really having that ability, but now also having the aid of the medicine, what does that mean for me? And I'm just really curious if I can embrace this type of looking at what food is to the human, completely cut away from diet culture, because that's what it's about. That feels really healthy to me, to look at food as a form of energy that can be joyful, but isn't connected to diet culture. So yes, that is what I was talking about. So I feel like because this is a podcast episode, I need to bring it all together in this one big philosophy idea. And I think that is, if you're on like a journey to know yourself and to take care of yourself in all the best ways that you can with all the tools that are available to you, listening to yourself requires space. And we fill up that space a lot by being on our phones so much. And we need quiet time. And I haven't even talked about meditation. I wish I had a daily practice. I don't yet, but I want to. And I'm working on it one step at a time. And the connection I can make to this podcast is that a coaching session is giving you that space to think. It's the container that I provide for you with very comfortable furniture, metaphorically and actually also, so that you can have this time that's for you to think and to figure out the places where you're stuck. And I help you with that. And this is why coaching is amazing for everyone, and especially for you. So if you're interested in getting coached around your work as a creative person, or just as a person in the world for that matter, I am happy to offer that space for you. And I hope you enjoyed hearing a little bit more about me and where I am in the world today in terms of where my mind is. I think this episode is going to be a lot better than the one I did before. But, maybe tomorrow I'll listen to it and I'll decide that the other one is also good enough and can be moved on to the next week. So let me hear your thoughts. Please reach out to me. I love to hear from you. People always think that I get a lot of messages, and I really don't, because all the people think that I get a lot of messages. So please reach out and let me know what you thought. If there's anything that you recognized, please also do be kind. If you have opinions about losing weight the way that I'm doing and they're negative, I would ask you to journal about it and not communicate them to me. All right. Thank you. See you next time. Hear you next time. Bye.